Love music, live sport. Talking football with David McKinnon and Alec Horsburgh. In for Bill Young on Rock Sport Radio.
Good evening. I am off the bench once again to sit in the King's throne. And it's Alec Horsburgh here with Dave McKinnon. Good evening. Welcome to Talking Football. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing okay, King, for an evening.
King for a day, as XTC once said. Yes, Bill Young can't be with us tonight, but he will return tomorrow. So let's give Bill a wee wave, as we always do. Hiya, babe. Hiya, Bill. I know you'll be watching. Hiya, babe. I know you'll be watching. Now, coming up on the programme this evening, Callum Brown from the official Talk Livy podcast. Livingston mathematically clinched survival last night. They beat Hamilton 2-0 with goals from Ryan Hardy and Craig Halkett. We'll also welcome Jeanette Finlay to the programme at 7 o'clock. Fans against criminalisation. They successfully fought against the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act, so that'll be an interesting one at 7 o'clock tonight. 7:30, Jordan Allison, Show Racism the Red Card. Leonardo Bonucci and Moise Keane. Well, that was an incident that everybody was talking about yesterday, and they're still talking about it today. But we're going to start with a reflection on last night's games. Let's go through the games, Davey. Let's start with Celtic's 2-0 win at St Mirren. Just before we do that, I've made some notes here. Ayer good. Weah made it 1-0. Incham's penalty miss. The Brown stamp. And Ryan Christie, let's talk all about that. First of all, how do you think Celtic played last night?
Well, I think obviously, when you come off an Old Firm game, you know, if you win, it becomes a bit difficult sometimes to raise your game because it's such a big event. You know, Rangers managed to do it. Celtic, I think they struggled at times, but I think that they've got some really, really good players. I think when Edouard came on, he raised the thing. Christie came on, raised the whole thing. So I think that, you know, St Mirren had their chances, but inevitably, you know, the class that Celtic have got in their side, you know, it was clear that they were going to go in and win the game, and they did in the end quite comfortably.
I watched the highlights, and everybody's talking about Christopher Ayer again, but for me, he was pretty solid. He is really kind of coming on to a game now.
No, he's a really good player. I saw him first when he was on loan at Kilmarnock, when I was at Hamilton, and actually spoke to people within Celtic at the time when Hamilton played Celtic, and I said, you know, Christopher looks really, really good. And Brendan Rodgers in particular said to me, he said, he feels he's a midfield player. He said, but, you know, when the play's coming right, left, centre, behind you, in front of you, he sometimes he isn't aware of where he is in the pitch. He said, so I'm quite delighted that he's pushed back and he's going to be a real top centre-half for Celtic in the years going forward. So he was very positive about him, and I think that he's developing, because I think you tend to forget he's just a young player coming in, experiencing first-time football. And he said several different partners at the back. And I think when you're a centre-back in particular and a young player coming into a side, if you've got an experienced and a regular centre-back, double centre-back with you who talks you through the game, that really helps you. And I don't think he's really had that. So he's had to actually fend for himself. And I think he's done particularly well.
Timothy Weah got the opening goal, and well, he seems to have kind of disappeared the last couple of weeks, but back on form with a goal last night.
Yeah, he did. It was a header into the box, deflected cross into the box, and he got the header against the underside of the bar, and it was definitely in. And he looks a good player. He's always got great movement, I think. And you know, if you're a midfield player playing in Celtic, you know where he's going to go. He gets in. He's got this great knack of naturally getting in behind in defence, and he certainly, as a player, I think that will go on to do big things. But you know, it was very clear last night.
Aye.
Match fitness wasn't there for him, because I think he get cramped towards the end, because you know, he's a player that puts himself about, and you know, and I mean that in the positive, that he actually, you know, is all over the park, makes these runs, but you know, I think that he probably needs a few more games to actually get to his peak. So I think he's one that you know, will develop. You know, he's obviously on loan at Celtic, and when he goes back to his club, I think that we'll look and see this guy's going to be, of a certain world class and such.
Chan made a real hash of the penalty. I mean, I'm never in favour of this kind of stop-start penalty technique.
Well, listen, it's the only way to do it is blast it, isn't it? Tommy Gemmell, probably the best exponent of penalty kicks.
Well, you had a few yourself as well, Davey.
Well, I tell you, I was just going to say though, it was because of my early instruction for Tommy Gemmell.
Right.
I remember, when I was transferred to Dundee and speaking to Tommy Gemmell, and he was just a legend as far as like penalty kicks are concerned. And I said, what's the secret? Because professional players, experienced players, you always want to pick up something from them. And I said, what's the secret, Tom? He says, I don't really know. He says, because, if I don't know what I'm doing, he says, the goalkeeper doesn't know. He says, and I just hit it as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And that was my philosophy, because even if the goalkeeper's going to dive the right way, if it's got enough pace on it, it will beat the goalkeeper. He maybe got a deflection on it. I hate to see players coming up and, maybe try to dink it in, or, don't hit it with power, because it's a 50-50 lottery then, because, and I think that's what happened last night.
Sure.
I think that, the St Mirren goalkeeper, I think he's a very, very good addition to St Mirren. And I think he obviously guessed the right way, and it was a really good save.
And of course, he kind of raised it off the ground a wee bit. It was a kind of bread and butter save for the goalkeeper, because he took it to about knee height or shin height.
It's a great height for goalkeepers. Now, if they guess the right way, Alec, they're going to get something on it, and he certainly.
Well, he got two hands on it. Didn't he?
Well, he did, and I'm surprised he didn't catch it. But that was, I think that was a time when maybe Celtic, it could have turned against them. St Mirren had a few good chances. I look at St Mirren, and we'll come on to Dundee in a wee while, but I look at St Mirren and they're such a good team, but they lack that power and that finesse up front that Celtic have. Celtic were able, with bringing on the subs, Christie and Edouard, that raised their whole profile up front, and St Mirren just don't have that.
And of course, then we had the Scott Brown stamp. Now, Scott Brown all over the media this week.
I don't think it was a stamp. I'm going to be controversial.
Really?
I think that I think if you look at various angles, you can interpret things in a different way. And I honestly, as an ex-professional, I didn't think that it was a deliberate stamp. I think he actually, when someone tackles you like that and they're basically underneath your feet, it's difficult to move your feet out of the way. Because if their momentum's keeping coming,
right,
then where do you put your feet? Do you stop? Do you put it beyond them? Do you whatever? So
could he not have just kind of fallen over the top of him instead of standing on his stomach?
Well, in an ideal world, Alec, but I didn't think it was a stamp, and that's just my interpretation of it. Others will have different views, but I just think that some of the things that happen in games, that they're inconsistent the way that they deal with them.
I thought Celtic's passing game last night was pretty good, and St Mirren, it was kind of more wishful thinking than anything else. But for Oran Kearney's sake, because I like Oran Kearney, I thought St Mirren could maybe, in their wildest dreams, maybe even get a draw, but. Celtic's passing game, I mean, St Mirren dug in and they battled fairly well last night, but Celtic's passing game stood out for me.
Well, they've got a great passing game, but I think what was happening, because St Mirren were sitting in, they were passing it in areas that were ineffective till you get the likes of Christie coming on.
Okay.
But there was another incident, and I don't know if you saw that, but there was an elbow on Ayer by St Mirren forward. I think that was deliberate.
Okay.
I think he'll be pulled up for it. The way that the Scottish game is going with compliance, I think he'll be pulled up for that. But what I can't understand is the fact is that there's a huge inconsistency, because I think that the Darren McGregor, remember the Darren McGregor elbow on Morelos? That was as bad as that one, and I think he get booked for it, and there was no retrospective sort of red card. So there's an inconsistency. I remember Dundee against St Mirren in the cup, or somebody in St Mirren in the cup,
right?
And the player really get elbowed.
Yeah.
You know, and the referee did nothing.
Okay.
And in fact, I went to compliance officer and they said, "Oh, there's no evidence to see here, nothing to see." It was a cup game.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, "Oh, goodness sake, what's happening here?" So, you know, everyone's open to interpretation, but I think that the authorities have to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they're saying, letting some off and then pulling others up, you know, what is the rationale behind that?
Yeah. Well, a decent win for Celtic last night, and let's move on to Rangers now. Rangers 3, Hearts 0 at Ibrox. Defoe staking a claim for the Morelos position?
Well, I tell you this, I think that, you know, watched the highlights, didn't see obviously, but, you know, I thought that if Rangers supporters were looking at that last night, that display, they were saying, I wish they'd have played that team against Celtic, because they seem to be, the tempo was higher, the different areas of the park. You know, Davis on the side, I don't know why Davis, the experience as he had, didn't start against Celtic. So I think that side, you know, had a lot of inventiveness in it. I think Defoe, you know, I know that Bill, Hughie Burns, Jerry Collins, Murdo, they've basically spoken about the incidents in the Old Firm game to death.
Sure.
You know, and I've watched a few of the feedback, a wee bit heated at times, which is great because it's all about passion.
That's right.
But, you know, I don't know whether anyone brought this up, but, you know, I know that Steven Gerrard played the same team, the Rangers team that beat Celtic, and I think that was a lot of psychological, you know, nuance in that. Mm-hmm. But I would have, if I was the manager, I would have played Defoe against Celtic instead of Morelos, because I know for one thing, you know, he's going to get people that are going to be in his face and try and wind him up, and it was always a powder keg.
Yeah.
And if I was a manager, I would have put Defoe in, and then maybe once the game settled down a wee bit, I would have maybe put Morelos on. I don't know if the guys brought that up, but it's all about, you know, picking the right team for the event. And I think that the Rangers team last night, if that team would have played against Celtic, I think they may have got a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Hearts never really came close. I mean, Ryan Kent good again. I'm starting to kind of warm to Ryan Kent a wee bit. I think he's busy, and you know, he puts himself about, and a lot of energy there. I like his energy.
Yeah, he's got a great spirit. Yeah, Alex. If somebody gives him a dunt, he just gets on with it, you know, and picks himself up. I maybe take the Scott Brown incident out.
Yeah, I mean, let's forget all about that, because that's, you know.
But he's a guy. He's a guy that has the ability that if somebody kicks me, I just get up because I'm brave.
Right.
And there was a lot of players, you know, in history that have done that people just kick them and they get up and say, "Well, kick me again," and I'll still get up. Because he's got a lot of spirit, and he's got that spirit.
Well, I know Rangers fans think Kent's a star already, but I think he's really starting to kind of earn his spurs now. Goldson made it 2-0, Arfield made it 3-0, and it was all over really before the second half really got underway. I think the third goal was right at the start of the second half, and you know, it was finished. It was done and dusted.
Well, I think they got a great you know, start. There was a kind of, obviously there was a situation where Suter was caught in possession, and I think Defoe was just slightly offside, so he'd scored early on. But, you know, the finish from Defoe was great, and I think once Rangers started to get ascendancy and a bit of confidence taken through the side, Davis was brilliant, pushing them forward. I think he had a great game, so I think that Hearts were in the back foot.
Well, Morelos be sitting there saying, you know, you're the old pretender. You're 36. I'm 22. You know, there's no way you're taking my position. I mean, could Defoe sustain it over?
I think so.
5, 6, 7 games.
Well, I think that the only real, you know, player in the squad is Lafferty to maybe look at Defoe between them. But Defoe for me is a really good player, and you know his fitness levels are very high. he can easily go on and score in every game as they move towards the
and
final.
I'm talking about Defoe replacing Morelos as the fans' favourite, as the Rangers fans' favourite.
Well, he may do so, but I think Morelos is a fan's favourite. But see, at the end of the day, see if Defoe goes in and scores in every game before Morelos is banned, has come off. What does Steven Gerrard do? Does he say, right, well, I'm bringing Morelos back in and putting Defoe on the bench? That's a difficult one.
Is Morelos the blue Lee Griffiths, I wonder? Is he going to be a forgotten man, or...?
No, I don't know. I think it's difficult because, he's a young guy that's, he's easily wound up. And, I never commented on it at all because this is the first time I've been on. But, that happens all the time in the game. And I remember as a player, the manager telling us before the game,
wind them up.
Remember such and such in the last game, get stuck in about them, and it would be orchestrated. I would maybe go and give somebody a dig, somebody else would go and give them a dig, and they would lose their concentration. It was not about retaliation. You didn't want them to retaliate and get sent off, but what you wanted to do was get them to lose their concentration. Sure. And I remember playing in a semi-final of the Cup for Rangers at Hampden, and there was a player on the opposition side, and he had a wee bit of a reputation of being easily wound up. Okay. And we as a team went out and wound him up because it's within the laws of the game, getting his face a wee bit about things. And before we knew it was actually earlier than we thought. Yeah. He just lost the plot completely, and he lost his concentration. And people will say, well, morally that's not right. It may not
all
be.
Fair and love and
but when I was then in the Cup final, I didn't say I feel really bad about it because, early in my career, I had people winding me up. I had, I remember going to the Dundee, transferred to Dundee, and we played Queen of the South in the League Cup. And I had two experienced players in the Queen of the South team. I scored an absolute peachy goal, top corner, and I'm thinking, this is wonderful. It gives you a huge boost. And when I was getting back the halfway line, there was somebody injured, and the referee went over. One of them punched me in the stomach, and the other kneed me in the face. And I was like, what's that about? You'll not be doing that again, son. Oh, yeah. And I know the guys, and I spoke to them after it and said, well, that was your baptism, wasn't it? And I said, it was pretty sore at the
welcome
time.
to Scottish football.
But do you know what it did to me was, I said to myself, that's a lesson learned. I'm never going to score a 40-yarder again.
Well, a good win for Rangers last night. Let's move on to Aberdeen. 1-0. Low, did he mean it?
Well, you and I spoke about this.
I think he did.
No, of course
he was looking at the goals when he crossed it in.
Of course he never, Alex.
He was looking for the postage stamp.
I've scored a goal when I played in games at left back. I remember swinging my left leg at times, and I remember getting into a similar position, and I swung my left leg into the box, and it flew over the goalkeeper, and exactly the same top corner. And all the guys were saying, was that a cross? I said, no.
Well, it was in. It's in. That's the main thing.
And that's it. That's all that counts.
But Hastie pulled it back to 1-1, and Motherwell looked as if they might take a point. Then it goes to 2-1 McGinn, 3-1 McGinn, and of course Motherwell got a goalkeeper carried off as well. Yeah,
well, Hastie, can we just talk about him? Hastie looks a great prospect. Now, I know that Rangers were talking to him about a pre-contract. I think that's maybe fallen through a wee bit, but he looks a really good player, and I think his finish was impeccable. It looked as if Motherwell come back into it, and then sort of McGinn, 2 goals. The second one in particular was an absolute peach. So over the piece, Aberdeen were worthy of their victory. So again, they're in competition with Kilmarnock to see who gets that European, that third spot. So that's a big thing, a big win for them.
Tayside derby last night. St Johnstone 2, Dundee 0. Hendry and Kennedy for the Perth Saints. But for me, Dundee, they look like a championship side already. I mean, they huffed and puffed. That's that famous old phrase. They huffed and puffed. But for me, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I had St Mirren's stick-ons to go down, but now I'm not so sure. I think Dundee. Well, it's your old club. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. I think there's, the spells of the game, they look as if they're going to score. and transform the whole thing, but they don't. Kenny Miller, for example, was through. A player of his experience, he's brought it inside and he has to hit it first time. After he's brought it inside, he then wants another touch and it's cleared, and then they go up and score. Well, again, probably a freakish goal. And that's it. And then the sort of heads go down, because what happens, Alec, if you're in a team that's near the bottom or the bottom of the league, where you say to yourself, oh, here we go again. And it becomes almost habitual that the players almost say, that's it, we're going to be beaten. And I think that's where Dundee are at present. And, the best they can hope for it, I think, is the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't got the stats. I don't know if it's a regular thing, but when Dundee come up, they never seem to springboard onto any great success. They're always struggling there at the bottom, and it doesn't really matter what era it is. Dundee just can't seem to get a grip and make an impression in the top league.
No, they can't, Alex. But the budget, they've got a very, very good budget at Dundee, and I think there was. Jim McIntyre's come in, and I think he's not had a true kind of run with his own players. He's brought some players in, but there's this habitual, feeling they've got. They're a big club, but when you lose, it becomes a habit, and it's not working for them. So, they're going to plummet. The only thing that they can hope for is, that either Hamilton or St Mirren, go through a really bad patch. Yeah. But you would be odds on they would be the bottom team at this stage. Which I've got a lot of affinity for Dundee. The fans. Yeah. In particular, the fans are absolutely brilliant up there, and I spent time as a player and a chief executive. Great, really get behind the club.
And they must have been
difficult for them.
Yeah, I mean, they must have been enjoying this era where they're ahead of Dundee United. I mean, it was the other way around for years.
Well, I would imagine unless Dundee
it's going to go back to business as usual.
Well,
basically.
It's going to be I don't. I think that obviously this Friday in the Championship, Ross County, Dundee United, or whatever it is, Dundee United, Ross County. Yeah. I think that will define the season, and inevitably it could be a championship with local derbies, Dundee against Dundee United, and that's sad for the city. Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing though, Alex, is that budgets are not always the thing that gets you success. But Dundee have a very, very big budget, very big budget. I know some of the players are getting, and I just think you can't sustain that for any length of time.
Okay, Livingston 2, Hamilton Accies 0. Well, Livy are safe.
Well, I spoke to when Gary Holt got the job. I said 40 points. That's your target, because I looked historically over seasons, and 40 points would be the one that you had to get. That was your target. Okay. They've obviously eclipsed that, and I can see them going on and winning a few more games. So that's a great opening season for them.
Well, let's hold back on Livy at the moment, because we've got to get the guy on from the Livy podcast, and we'll open it up with Livingston. Final game last night, Hibernian 0, Kilmarnock 0. Was it a case of no goals, no football?
Well, it surprised me. I watched wee bits of the highlights, but because I knew the score, I thought I'm not going to. It was one of these games that you kind of switched off. But
an end of season affair, as they used to call them.
Well, the big thing, there's a lot for Kilmarnock to play for. Yeah. I was at the game on Saturday, Kilmarnock against Hamilton, and I'll say this, Alex, that Kilmarnock moved the ball about in every area of the park. It was probably the best performance I'd seen from a team as far as moving the ball quickly, first time, couple of touches, and that was without a few players that I really admire, Jones and Power, Alan Power. They look a really, really good team, Kilmarnock, and they're full of players that know what their job is. That's important. But they're all playing for the club. And I hadn't been at Kilmarnock for a long time, since Hamilton went down there before Stevie Clark came. Sure. And when I went down there previously, the atmosphere was toxic. Honestly, people shouting from the stand. Out you go, the manager, out the board, get rid of. It was really,
and
really
people
tough.
outside weren't very kind to Kilmarnock, because they were basically saying Kilmarnock's not a football town.
Well,
I mean, that was even said as well.
it's a football town, very much so.
Well,
but
I know that.
wonderful supporters.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe that the supporters had turned against the team so much, because when I was there as a player and indeed chief executive, one of the big things that we had was the community spirit and the support of the fans.
Sure.
The fans like Dundee are immense, absolutely immense, wonderfully organised, great people, very passionate about the club. And when I went down with Hamilton before, I thought, goodness sake, what's happened here? But I tell you, it was back in Saturday, that positive passion from the fans. You know, Kathy Jimison's getting in the board, which has been tremendous. You know, a wonderful person, you know, who's basically, you know, been at the top end of the government. Sure. She knows how to conduct herself. Yeah. She's revered by the fans. The fans, the Kelly Trust, have grown in stature. They're now in and involved in the club. Billy Bowie's come in, you know, and with respect to Michael Johnson has left the club, and that's all a culmination of a positive effect in the club. Yeah. And Kilmarnock look as if they're doing the right way. Well,
they haven't split the Old Firm, but I mean, third place in the current atmosphere, I mean, that's a tremendous achievement by Steve Clarke.
It is absolutely brilliant, and but as I say, you know, he's unassuming, but he tells people what to do. He's got a huge amount of respect on and off the park there. One of the things, though, I think Kilmarnock, you know, and this is just my view on it, that Stevie Clarke's taken them, he's turned the whole club around, right? They're up there level with Aberdeen at this juncture on 55 points. One team, third, goes into Europe. I think if Stevie Clarke gets Kilmarnock into Europe, Stevie Clarke will stay with the club.
Really?
I think if he doesn't get them into Europe, then, you know, I'm afraid he may decide that he's taking them as far as he can.
Surely the way clubs in England are already looking at Steve Clarke.
Yeah, I'm sure they are, but the thing is, there's a big thing in football, Alex, that the grass is always greener on the other side, and I've done it myself as a player when I've thought I'm going to move club, and then when you move club, it becomes really difficult. Stevie Clarke's made no secret of the fact that he wants to return to England because his family's down there. But what he's done for Kilmarnock, the town, not just the team, for the town is incredible.
Well, I'd rather that Steve Clarke stayed in Scottish football, but I mean, there's Fulham relegated now. I mean, there's a good fit, right?
Well, but the thing is, you know, what's success in England? You know, the thing is, owners have got sometimes strange expectations for their teams. You know, it's about managing expectations. And what's to say Stevie Clarke wouldn't go down there and maybe not get them promoted or have a bad start before he cleared things out?
But could he resist it?
Well, the other thing is that just going back to the Kilmarnock fans, the Kilmarnock fans are really realistic. You know, they've said, look what he's done for us. If the time is right for Stevie Clarke to move on, we goes with our best wishes. We'd love him to stay here, but what he's done for the club is incredible. So they're realistic about it. But
so remember,
whatever will happen, will happen.
Remember, there was the phrase as well, though. You know, I thank Chelsea for taking me away from the west of Scotland. You know, has that feeling disappeared in such a short space of time?
Well, he was brought up in the west of Scotland. I think it was he's. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think he's either Saltcoats or a Kilwinning man. I think he's a Saltcoats man. His brother Paul, you know, played 400 games for the club, centre back, brilliant big player, nice big guy. So he's ingrained in the club. He knew the club even though he played with St Mirren, so he knows that area. And you know, one of the things is that you know, where you're brought up, Alec, and you know this better than anybody, you've got a great affinity for it.
But you
have to move on.
Aye, but absolutely. But you know, I wouldn't want to kind of, you know, with respect to the hometown, I wouldn't want to go back there right now. And Steve Clarke,
where is your hometown?
I'm not going to say it. Steve Clarke, because I think they have a sweep in the office now for when I'm going to say it. But Steve Clarke, I mean, his footballing life is in London, and it's been in London and certainly, you know, the south of England for quite a wee while now. I've got a feeling, it's just a kind of hunch, there's no kind of basis for it, but I've got a feeling Fulham might come chapping on the door. Very much so. I think that's probably the case, Alec. But I tell you one thing, Stevie Clarke is a man, you know, and this will never ever be levelled at him as is levelled at many people.
he's not a mercenary. He's not up here, because he wants to come up
proper
and do
football man.
He's not using Kilmarnock as a stepping stone. He's using Kilmarnock because they're equally they're partners in this. They want Stevie Clarke, and Stevie Clarke wants Kilmarnock at this time. So he, whatever he decides, but as I say, in my view, if he gets Kilmarnock into Europe, I mean, I don't know when the last time that happened. What was it when? It was the 90s.
Well, was it the 90s?
It may have been the 90s. I think they played in the old Yugoslavia. I remember that was famous when Bobby Williamson was the manager.
All right, okay.
But
a lot of people don't know. Quick start, just a quick one. A lot of people don't know that in the season that Celtic won the European Cup and Rangers lost the Cup Winners' Cup, that was 67. Kilmarnock were actually in the semi-final of the Fairs Cup. So they've got. I do know. They've got European pedigree.
They've got form. Yep. So, as I say, that's just my understanding, my interpretation of it. I think if he gets Kilmarnock into Europe, why would he not stay for another season and get them to wherever as far as he could get them?
Okay. Right, well, there's a review of last night's games. Just in case you missed them, Aberdeen 3, Motherwell 1, Hibs 0, Killie 0, Livingston 2, Accies 0, Rangers 3, Hearts 0, St Johnstone 2, Dundee 0, St Mirren 0, Celtic 2. Very shortly, we're going to talk more about Livingston Football Club, the former Meadowbank Thistle, who have been Livingston since the mid-90s, and what a journey it's been ever since they moved out to West Lothian. We're going to speak to Callum Brown from the official Talk Livy podcast very shortly here on Rock Sport Radio's Talking Football.
Have you ever lost money on an investment? If a high street bank persuaded you to buy a stocks and shares ISA, unit trust or investment bond and you lost money, you could be entitled to thousands of pounds in compensation. It doesn't matter if you no longer have the investment or can't find the paperwork. You could still be owed thousands. Text GOOD to 66777 and Goodwin Barrett will start a free assessment to find out how much you could be owed. Text GOOD to 66777 and Goodwin Barrett will call you back.
You train together. You are there for each other. You win, and sometimes you lose. Together. Above all, you're a team. But it makes no difference if you can't even get there. AMK Self-Drive offer minibus hire for 8, 14, 15 and 17-seater buses from £80 a day. To get your team or club to training, events or competitions, make AMK Self-Drive a member of your team. Find out more at amkselfdrive.co.uk. Saturday and Sunday, 2-day minimum hire required. Terms and conditions apply.
After an accident at work, you can feel angry, frustrated and upset. You're probably feeling in pain and worried about the impact on your family and your job. Well, it's time to experience a different feeling. At First for Lawyers, we'll help you discover what justice feels like. At First for Lawyers, we've a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. So text compensation to 66077 and let us find the right lawyer for you. No win, no fee. Text compensation to 66077 and we'll call you back.
It's easy to put things off. I'll sort it tomorrow. It'll wait. Well, turns out if you're a man with prostate disease, the sooner you spot it, the better it can often be treated. So if your dad or brother have had prostate cancer, or you're having trouble with your waterworks, do something about it. See your GP or visit prostatescotland.org.uk for more information. Prostate Scotland. Pull your finger out.
Love music. Live sport. Talking football with David McKinnon and Alec Horsburgh. In for Bill Young on Rock Sport Radio.
Bill Young will return tomorrow on Rock Sport Radio with Hugh Burns and Paul Hegarty. Can I just say to our tweeters tonight, leave off Jerry Collins for a minute. Hey, I mean, as they said at the weekend, game's gone. Game's gone now. Jerry is... Jerry's taking a wee bit of stick still on Twitter. Look, it's Thursday night now. That guy over there, that's Dave McKinnon. Address your tweets to him.
Well, listen, don't open up the floodgates, please. I was getting off lightly there.
Well, let's get on to Livingston now, and let's talk to Callum Brown from the official Livy podcast. Callum, Livingston mathematically clinched survival last night. Are you a happy man?
Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted. We've had a brilliant season. I didn't think in my wildest dreams that we'd be safe with 6 games to go, and even staying up's amazing. But the fact we've done it with as I say, 6 games to go is just absolutely remarkable.
Ryan Hardy and Craig Halkett with the goals last night. Away to Celtic at the weekend. I heard Holt saying that they can actually go there and enjoy the occasion now.
Yeah, definitely. Earlier on in the season, we went there just to enjoy the occasion. It was our first game back in the top flight for about 12 years, and I think we can do the same now. You could say we've nothing to play for. I think personally we could still maybe nick 8th or 7th place, but as I say, there's nothing to play for really. We can, and as I agree with the gaffer there, we can go there, and we can just sit back and enjoy the occasion. Celtic are obviously playing for a lot, but we can enjoy the occasion and just enjoy the atmosphere really, because we've formerly been going to places like Peterhead and Stranraer at this point in the season, and now we go to Parkhead, and just but with safety secured, it's just absolutely brilliant.
Callum, Davy McKinnon here. I know a lot about Livingston, great club. Davy Hopkin did tremendously well for you, there's no doubt about it. The double promotion that he got, and obviously he decided that he wanted to go and seek other places for employment, but he left a great legacy there. When Kenny Miller came in, what was the reaction of the fans? Because I think he tried to change the style. Davy obviously brought players in that could play a certain style, he get the best out of them, but the format changed a wee bit there. What was the views of the fans when obviously you played those first few games of the season?
Well, listen, I was absolutely gutted when we heard Hoppy was leaving.
Yeah, great guy.
As you say, great legacy, and he's a legend of the club now. But it was a weird one when Kenny Miller came in, because obviously it turned out to be a huge risk without much reward. But we were playing some nice stuff pre-season, and well, it wasn't pre-season, but the League Cup group stage, we were playing some nice stuff. We got through that. We sailed through the group and that. We were passing more than we've been kind of done in the press and that for our long ball kind of style, direct style. But no, Kenny was trying to get us to play out from the back, which I don't mind. But I mean, it clearly wasn't working with him playing as well as managing. I don't think you can do that really, and you could tell he was trying to play. He was more focused on still being a player than managing, I think. But it's worked out now, obviously, with Gary Holt coming in. So it's a shame that it's a shame that it didn't work out. But
no,
yeah.
And Gary's reverted back to obviously the Davy Hopkins style, and that seems to be working for you, because I know Davy, that his philosophy is that you choose a style and then you get players to play that style. And I must admit, when Kenny started to play as you say, the ball out for the back, if you don't have the players that are comfortable doing that, it becomes very, very difficult for the players. But I think Gary's come back in as a manager, and he's very quickly identified that we need to go back to the style that got us promoted. Is that in fact what the case is?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Gary Holt just said, we've got a great backroom staff that was obviously still there under Hopkins, so they'll have had a bit of input in that. Just play to your strengths. Really, we've got a couple of quick guys up front, strong at the back, and we can actually play football. Like Craig Halkett, who's obviously now got his move to Hearts. He's an absolutely fantastic footballer. Just the amount of times he dribbles out from the back in a game, or it's like his range of passing is brilliant. We've got Pittman, Byrne, Jacobs all in the middle of the park. They can play football. So it's good to see that we have reverted back to the Hopkins style, because I don't see why you'd come into a club and change, with back-to-back promotions. I don't see why you'd change the style of play, but yeah.
Callum, can I ask you, almost 25 years since Livingston basically became Livingston, you're obviously too young to remember the move from Edinburgh to West Lothian. How long have you actually been supporting Livingston?
Well, I'm 19 now. I'm 20 this year, but
sure.
I've been supporting Livingston since as long as I can remember, to be honest with you. The first season I can remember was maybe 2001, so that was our first season in the top flight. I remember that, guys. I grew up with, like, you know, obviously wearing Livingston shirts, guys like David Fernandez, David Bingham on the back of my shirt.
Great.
Yeah, my earliest memory probably of football at Livingston was the 2004 Cup final.
Mm-hmm.
So I am quite a baby in the sense of that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but I'm just interested. I mean, that was League Cup final. That was Davy Hay, obviously.
Yeah, it was. That was 2004. We beat Hibs 2-0. I remember my dad telling.
Yeah, because I've always been interested with the transition. I mean, I'm old enough, and Davy's old enough to remember when, you know, they were Meadowbank Thistle, and then you had this chairman, Bill Hunter, who basically said, okay, we're the third team in Edinburgh. We can't get anywhere as a third team in Edinburgh. We're moving out to Livingston, and we're relaunching. It was almost like a kind of American football franchise, and back in the mid-90s, it was quite a big thing for a football club, and I guess it still is a football club, to move to new territory and basically start all over again. And in the early days of Livingston, I mean, it was a wee bit of an up and down start, but Davey, the point I'm making is it's just been an incredible journey in the last 25 years for Livy.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. It's, as you say, it's been a brilliant journey, and you could kind of describe it as a roller coaster. I mean, I've grown up with, I mean, maybe too young to remember all the glory days, but you know, with that cup win, I was growing up with a couple of titles and things like that. But then I've spent most of my life supporting Livingston in the lower divisions, so
sure. I
mean, to see us now secure safety is just remarkable, and especially with the squad and the budget and, you know, all of that, it's just brilliant. And
I'm just before Davey comes back in, I'm quite interested to hear about, just quickly, about the podcast, because I was reading a thing the other day about younger fans, guys 18, 19, 20, 21, they're beginning to offer their services to their clubs to make their social media presence better, to get young fans coming in. I mean, do you feel that podcast that you do you feel that kind of ticks that box at Livingston?
Yeah, I think it's great engaging with fans. We do a podcast called Talk Livy, so it's basically just discussing all things Livingston. We get player interviews done. The club's brilliant with us, allowing us to go in and get the players, and the management have been different class with that as well. Yeah, it's a brilliant club for that to go in, and just the access you get is phenomenal. I don't think you get that at bigger clubs. But yeah, the podcast, we basically talk Livy, it's in the title. There's a couple of my mates, Andrew and Ewan. So yeah, it's great. I think it's really engaging with the fans and the community maybe. So yeah, I think it's a good way of going forward. You see with the rise of social media and things like that, the presence on social media is huge with fans. I know, speaking from my point of view, I'm on Twitter every day, and seeing that type of content's great for me.
No, Callum, you're absolutely right. I think that clubs that have are forward thinking, they adopt the approach of getting the podcasts. I know the Livy podcast very well. I think that you're right. I think the club embrace it because it gives the fans and into the club, and it gives them information, the players, and I know the management there and the players are quite open to talk about things but there are other clubs. I was at Kilmarnock on Saturday, and they're doing similar things, and they've really engaged with the sort of young up and coming supporters. Hamilton that you played last night do the exact same. So it must be gratifying for yourself, because obviously being a Livy supporter coming through, since you were young, watching them, it must have been, you must have wanted to play with them in some capacity, play in the team. But if you weren't doing that, it must be a great association to begin and talk to players and ask them the questions that the young fans want to ask.
Yeah, it's brilliant. As you say, yeah, obviously growing up, my dream was to play for Livy. I would have played for free and all that, but
you better not say that to Gary Holt.
Wasn't obviously good enough growing up, but yeah, I'm studying sports journalism at the moment at university, so it's brilliant for me, the access the club have given me, and to go in and be able to interview the manager and the players. I do some writing for the programme at Livy, and now obviously with the podcast, so that's just brilliant for me. As I say, you don't you don't get that at many clubs. Kilmarnock and Hamilton used to do that. I mean, the more you get, it's better access. But to be able to go into a top flight club like Livingston, Kilmarnock, Hamilton is just absolutely brilliant, especially if you've supported them your whole life.
It's a great thing, Dave, isn't it? And it's good that these clubs are beginning to realise that, you know, these guys in their late teens and early 20s, I mean, these guys can really promote them through social media, through tweets. I mean, we've got young producers here at Rock Sport Radio who are incredible at, recognising that, you know, a tweet here or a tweet there could just make all the difference.
Well, I think, Callum, in the early days when I was associated with some clubs, what the only sort of voice for fans was in unofficial forums.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I know at some of the clubs I were at, they considered the fans, you know, growing in stature and having unofficial forums as a threat.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be a threat, it should be actually to endorse, because ultimately you have to listen to your fans. And I know at Kilmarnock, I laugh and joke with the guys, you know, Baz and Hippo, but they, with others, started, you know, the Kelly kickback. Yeah. And I know from my time at Kilmarnock as a chief executive, you know, I used to have people in the board saying to me, "Oh, I can't believe what they're saying." And I used to just laugh, because at the end of the day, these guys were passionate about their club, and you have to listen to the supporters. Do you feel, I mean, you're obviously getting the access to you, but is there anything that you, on behalf of the fans through the podcast, that you're able to take to the club and say, "Look, this isn't quite working out. Could you help us to fix this?"
We've not really had anything at the moment. Obviously, I think everything's going well at the club, but it's a brilliant platform for us to, you know, voice our opinions if there was something going wrong. But it's a great platform for us to, you know, discuss things about Livingston, about the way we're playing, about the management style, you know, all of that. So if there was something that came up and we didn't agree with, I think it would be straightforward enough to go in and ask.
Do you know something? One of the things I'm just looking at is that one of the things I know Davy Hopkin wanted to do was get the fan base up, and I've been to, you know, a couple of Livingston games, and, you know, the fans are really behind, but the numbers don't seem to be growing. I know that you're obviously, when you're playing other teams, you know, that the crowd improves, but is there still only about a core 1,000 of supporters that go to the games, or is that growing?
I think it's 1,200 season tickets we've got, which is a real shame, because, I mean, we're talking about here the rise since, you know, League One. We won League One and then playoffs last season. Whether we had a big boom during the playoffs, but obviously since we've been promoted, they've not been back. They're obviously fans of other clubs, and I don't think we can really compete with your Rangers, Celtics, and so people going west, and people also going through to Edinburgh for Hearts and Hibs. So I don't think we can compete really.
And right enough,
the fans
Sorry, Callum, carry on. Sorry, mate, carry on.
Well, the fans we do have are brilliant. You know, usually we've got a core away support, maybe 300. It's not that much, but I'd rather see 300 people get behind the team than, you know, a couple of thousand that choose to go some weeks and don't turn up.
And well, they've only got a 25-year history, really.
Well, do you know, I was just going to say, it's getting getting into perspective as well, because I remember when I was at Kilmarnock as a chief executive, that when Livingston used to come, they actually only brought 100. I remember one day, it was a particularly poor game, but I remember counting the Livingston fans, and there was 121. So, you know, if you've improved up to 300, that's some going.
And you must remember as well, Callum, you know, again, I'm not going to get old school on you again, but I mean, one of the reasons that they moved out to Livingston, because back in the days of Meadowbank Thistle, one night Meadowbank Thistle played Stranraer, the crowd was 79. That was a famous newspaper article in the early 80s, the fact that Meadowbank Thistle could only draw 79 people to a home game against Stranraer, and of course everybody there would be a Meadowbank Thistle fan, bar maybe one or two. So you know, I mean, that was one of the reasons that they moved out to Livingston and restarted. I mean, you know, Livingston, I don't know Livingston that well, but I mean, is it a bit of a Hearts town? Is it basically Are you stuck right in the middle there between Hibs and Hearts and Celtic and Rangers?
Yeah, in my opinion, growing up through school, I was one of very, very few Livingston fans. I'd go out with my mates and you'd get slagged for supporting Livingston.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You're playing in the Diddy leagues or whatever, and your mates are off watching Hearts, Hibs, Rangers, Celtic winning trophies. So that's what I got stuck in that growing up. But
it takes a real football fan, though, Callum. It takes a real football fan to brush all that off and say, listen, I live here, I'm going to support the team down the road. It takes a lot of guts to do that.
No, definitely. It's just, I've been an avid fan of, supporting your local team. I'd rather go and watch Livingston than sometimes not get a ticket for a big team at a big game. So yeah, I've been going to Livy games home and away for years now. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, can I ask there's no punch bag behind this, but the big thing about when a club gets success, which you've great. I mean, the way the club's gone these double promotions and then such a wonderful season this season, are the fans? Is there expectation now that you're a top team club? Because half the things of other clubs that I've been associated with is sometimes when you have success, it's managing expectations. What I've found though when I've been to Livingston is they're quite realistic about enjoying the journey. Do you think that's what they're doing, or do you think that they're now managing? They want to actually they've got a taste of it and they want to stay up there.
Obviously, we'd love to stay up every year, but I think next season it's generally again about staying up. I don't know what fans feel, but I think you're bonkers if you're thinking, if you're a Livingston fan and you're thinking, maybe next year we can get top six. I think the realistic ambition, and I'm sure Gary Holt and Davy Martindale and all the backroom staff and players will say the same, that our realistic ambition next year will just be to stay up again.
Have you not got any celebrity fans there, Callum? I'm sure a few years ago now, Robbie Williams, he was kind of talking about Livingston. It was his favourite Scottish team or something. I mean, have you got guys coming up from England who just kind of like to? I mean, you've got these guys, these groundhoppers that come up from England that just want to see. They see these Scottish teams on pools coupons and they just want to see the place. Have you got any fans coming up from down south?
Yeah, I know a guy actually called Morgan. He comes up. He's actually just his partner's just given birth, but so that's obviously stopping him just now. But Morgan's comes up from near Stoke, I think, every week home and away.
Well, that's where Robbie Williams is from.
Yeah.
It's probably the Robbie Williams connection. It's probably Robbie Williams kind of mentioning them a few years ago.
Right, could be.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, interesting. So what's next for? I mean. European football again? Can that ever happen?
I mean that's the dream, isn't it? We've got a couple of players leaving, obviously. Halkett, Gallagher maybe. I think he's out of contract, so still get him going to Motherwell. That'll obviously weaken us, but I don't know. Realistically, I just want us to be in the league again this time next season. Europe would be absolutely phenomenal. And you look at what Marnock have done. They're potentially going into Europe after similarly just avoiding relegation most seasons. But I would say there's no reason why we can't. But yeah, we can go for that. But again, as I say, the aim's to stay up.
Well, Callum, let me wish you all the best with the official Talk Livy podcast. Keep tweeting, keep doing that podcast, and keep supporting your hometown team, because there's a lot of merit in that. It's very easy just to support the big club, but it takes something a wee bit special to say, I was brought up here and this is the team I'm going to support. So more power to you, sir, and thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Callum. Great, that's Callum Brown from the official Talk Livy podcast. I'm going to go to the tweets just for a minute. And, well, actually, here's one about you, Davey. 3 words to describe Dave McKinnon. Integrity, informed, and gentleman. So there you are.
But a difficult spelling, gentleman. That's very nice. I really appreciate it.
So there you are. You've got a fan there. Now we have got a guy that's kind of tweeting about, listen, can I just say to, just because we get somebody on that you don't like doesn't necessarily mean that, the radio station's in a bad way. We are open to all opinion. We are neither a Rangers or a Celtic station. So let me just put that straight right away. There's a lot of, they support Rangers, they support Celtic. No, we don't. We're impartial. So, there's some strange tweets going. But anyway, let's not keep going with that. We've got Jeanette Finlay coming up very shortly. Fans Against Criminalisation successfully fought against the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act, and of course in danger of new legislation being implemented. So we'll speak to Jeanette very shortly here on Rock Sport Radio. But I think just briefly, I think it's just important to say that, we are an impartial radio station. We are straight down the middle. And we have all shades of opinion. We have all shades of football. We have all divisions of football on Talking Football, whether it's me sitting in for Bill or Bill doing the show as normal. So that's just, I just want to put that out there. But anyway, 5 to 7, Thursday, 4th of April, it's Rock Sport Radio. Remember, you can get in touch at Rock Sport DAB for Twitter. And, of course, the programme is available on Facebook and Twitter, on Periscope and at the YouTube channel. David, just before we go to Jeanette, anything that's been catching your eye in the football world?
No, I just think that my only thing is the compliance thing. It was quiet for a wee while, but it seems to have raised its head again. And I think that the two latest ones, Scott Brown and Stephen Gerrard, after a Sunday's game, have been called to answer. I think that Scott Brown is his charge is not acting in the best interests of association football. So basically, in short, that is bringing the game into disrepute, which I think will be difficult to prove, but because there'll be different views of it. The Stephen Gerrard one. Apparently offered a 1-game ban for remarks to Bobby Madden. I think that's, to be brutally honest, that's a bit of a joke, because, Bobby Madden should grow up here, because I've been, as my duty chief executive of clubs, of getting in with the manager after the game to speak to the referee, and there's been some heated exchanges. There's been some things said that maybe shouldn't have been said, but because of the privacy of where it was said and when it was said, then the referee just said, well, look, we've got a difference of opinion. I respect your opinion. You respect mine. So let's get on with it. But what seems to have happened now is and I may be wrong, but it appears that Bobby Madden's put in his report that maybe Stephen Gerrard had remarks from that he wasn't pleased with. Yeah. But, that goes on all the time. And, to offer Stephen Gerrard a 1-game ban is it's almost, Alex, like scraping the barrel of compliance. Yeah. We'll do something against players, will do something against managers because we can. And I think that'd make a good headline. Scraping the barrel of compliance. Well, there we go. But it's taking the game to a place I don't like. A very dark place. I don't like it going that way. No, I'm the same, Davey. Listen, we're going to move on very shortly, and we're going to speak to Jeanette Finlay from Fans Against Criminalisation. That's on the way after this from Rock Sport Radio.
Thursdays at 8 p.m. F1, Rally, Formula E, Touring Cars and MotoGP. The motorsport season is well and truly underway, and Rock Sport Radio is already spinning wheels and burning rubber. Andy Alston and Adam Todd are on the starting grid every Thursday from 8 p.m. to bring you news and comment on Pole Position, a petrolhead's dream. Try a lap or two with the guys. Pole Position on Rock Sport Radio.
The list of things you need to do gets longer at this time of year, whether that's for the house or in your business. So take one thing off your list right now. Your septic tank could need emptied. Let Grant Henderson Tankers empty your septic tank in the home or work, farm, factory or workshop at very competitive rates. We are septic tank specialists, experienced, safe and dedicated to environmental safety with our own licensed disposal site. Find out more at wemovesh.it or call 01698 284 987. Grant Henderson Tankers. Let the experts manage your waste.
Looking to sell your house fast for cash? Freedom Property Buyers offer a free no-obligation offer within just 24 hours, allowing you to move on. Whether you're in financial difficulty, facing repossession, looking to sell an inherited property, emigrating, or are simply in need of a quick sale, we can help you get there in 3 easy steps. Call 0141 258 6963 or visit Freedom Property Buyers UK. Freedom Property Buyers. Consider it sold.
If you've had a car accident that wasn't your fault, you don't just want any lawyer to fight your claim for compensation. You want the right lawyer, an experienced road traffic accident specialist who'll work no win, no fee. But how do you find them? At First for Lawyers, we make it easy to find the right lawyer for you. Just text compensation to 66077 and we'll call you back. At First for Lawyers, we've a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. So text compensation to 66077 now.
Love music, live sport. Talking football with David McKinnon and Alec Horsburgh. In for Bill Young on Rock Sport Radio.
And just a reminder, from 8 o'clock tonight, it's Andy Austin and Adam Todd with Formula 1 news, the best Formula 1 news you'll get, with pole position, 8 until 9 tonight on Rock Sport Radio. Let's bring in Jeanette Finlay to the programme now, Fans Against Criminalisation, and they successfully fought against the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act. Jeanette, thanks very much for joining us today. Can I ask you just, first of all, are football fans getting a raw deal still?
Yeah, they definitely are. There's absolutely no question of that. I mean, the sort of mass hysteria around football is it's interesting because I've noticed recently that academics in England are looking at this and they're really struggling to work out exactly what the problem is. You know, so there's all these sort of like lurid headlines about crisis and all of this sort of thing, and they're thinking, well, like, exactly where is the evidence for this? And that's the problem.
I just picked up one of the lines from a recent interview that you did, and I liked that line, manufactured crisis. That's what you were saying. It's a manufactured crisis.
Well, it is, because if you actually examine the data, if you go and say, well, okay, how many incidents are there, how many arrests and charges and all of that thing for, you know, problematic behaviour, then, you know, and compare that to other types of events with large crowds and so on, and you look at that as a proportion of the crowd, football comes out really, really well.
Well,
and I mean, I've said this before. Yeah. Football is actually safer. Yeah. Than some people's living rooms.
Well, just before you go on, Jeanette, we've got the league table here. Arrests at events in Glasgow over the last few years. Stone Roses, 10 arrests. Transmit 2017, 8. Transmit 2018, 34 arrests over 5 days. Eminem concert, 10 arrests. Paolo Nutini and Calvin Harris gigs, 38 arrests. Old Firm game, 6 arrests. Yeah. So, you know, again, it's a bit of hyperbole going on.
Some of those are very, very serious incidents. Whereas I think the 6 from Parkhead last week, I think 1 was for drunkenness, 3 was for singing, and I'm not sure about the other 2. But I mean, if you look at even the scale of things happened, you know, there's been deaths at some of these, you know, concerts. There's, you know, they don't even compare, and yet, if you just landed for the moon and looked at the Scottish press, or indeed if you just landed for England even and looked at the Scottish press, you would think there was some major, you know, that it was a really, really dangerous thing to go to a football match in Scotland, and it just isn't.
Is this manufactured crisis, as you call it, you know, is this the last bastion of Scotland trying to maybe dress itself up as, you know, a bit dangerous, a bit hard, you know?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a number of things going on. I think that there are lots of people, politicians and inside the police, who are still really smarting about the fact that the Offensive Behaviour Act was abolished. And a year later, they're still struggling with that. Inside Police Service of Scotland, a culture was built up under Stephen House during all of that, or most of that period, in which, fans were considered to be, dangerous, terrible people, who had to be monitored and surveyed and photographed, and these were people who really had to be kept, on a par with organised crime and terrorism, and that was never going to go immediately. That was always going to take some time to change, because that kind of cultural change inside an organisation, a total organisation like Police Service of Scotland, that was going to take a while to change. So that's still there. Now, there still is the same incentive for the same people to do the same things some 8 years later. So you have politicians who would like very much to distract the public's attention from the problems which are much more difficult to address, and so they like to have an easy whipping boy, and we've played that role. So it's always good to say, oh look at these football fans, look what they're doing, and here's what we're going to do about it, and something needs to be done, and all of that sort of stuff. And then you've still got police officers police force who wish to get their hands on funding, both public funding and quite keen to get some money off the clubs, or more money off the clubs than they already do. So we have this kind of, I think, quite dangerous thing that's going on just now with the General Secretary and the Deputy General Secretary of the Scottish Police Federation, which is their sort of sham trade union. And they now speak, all of the interviews, look around, and most of the interviews now about these issues are with those two individuals, Callum Steele and David Hamilton, not with police officers who actually have an operational role. So they don't speak, but these people speak.
Can I ask you as well, Jeanette? I mean, Fans Against Criminalisation, initially it consisted of the main 5 Celtic supporters groups.
Yes.
I'm playing devil's advocate here, but, some people might say that it's more about Celtic than it is about the rest of Scottish football. What would your reply to that be?
Well, my reply to that would be that during the whole period of the Act, the figures show you that, in fact, this impacted on fans of all clubs. In fact, some clubs much more than us, in proportionate terms, and that we as an organisation assisted fans from many, many clubs, including Rangers, including many other clubs, and we offered that support because we thought it was right. So yes, it has been led by Celtic fans. It's not that surprising, really, given Celtic's history and the ethos of our community. We're an immigrant community. We've always had to organise to defend ourselves, so we're quite good at it. So I think it's not that surprising, and given our numbers, that we would take a kind of a leading role in this. Yeah. But it's always been completely open, and there are other fans of other clubs who attend our meetings. Now, we would have hoped by this stage, a year after the Act was repealed, that we would be sort of winding down, but it now looks like we may just have to stay in place until we can see where this current, mass hysteria is going to go. But we certainly would be very keen to head off any kind of sense that, we don't want to be in something needs to be done land, because that really doesn't produce good policy.
Jeanette, I've had a tweet here, and it's someone that wants me to ask you, should the Scottish media be held more accountable for the reporting of our football, the language they use, and the false narrative, according to this person, they try to portray? How do we stop them, he says?
Well, there is a great difficulty in the notion of, controlling the press, because, in a free society, the press has to be free to say all sorts of things. But that doesn't mean to say that the press don't have a responsibility, in the same way as we all in our various organisations and professions and so on have a responsibility. So the press have a responsibility not to, sensationalise and overstate and exaggerate things. They do have a responsibility to do that, and actually I don't think they stand up to that responsibility very well currently. controlling them. I'm not keen on the idea of controlling them. I would be happy to let the press have much more freedom to say what they need to say, as long as they were happy for other citizens to have the freedom to say what they want to say. But they seem very keen on suppressing free speech from certain groups in society, but quite keen on defending their own. So I mean, I think my answer to that is I don't know how we control them in this sense, because I don't really know that we want to control them. But of course, people are very free not to buy their newspapers and not to listen to their television broadcasts or their radio broadcasts. They can just use the off button and just don't use it.
Jeanette, it's Dave McKinnon here. I've been involved in football for many, many years. And it's really interesting about, the perception of the incidents in the game, particularly this season. The perception, whether we like it or whether we don't, is that the incidents have increased. You're going to games on a regular basis. From your perspective, do you think incidents that have hit the papers, do you think that they have increased, or indeed it's been happening in previous years and not been reported to such an extent?
Well, I would say two things to that. I think in about the last maybe 6 to 8 weeks, there's been 4 or 5 incidents. So there's not a huge number of incidents. Having said that, there's been some copycat behaviour, I think. So things like throwing stuff onto the pitch. Now, I'm completely opposed, and my organisation is completely opposed, and most sensible people are completely opposed to anybody throwing anything on a pitch, barring it being a scarf at the end of a celebratory walk round by a team or something like that.
Well, I've seen it happen in the opposite when they throw
in the main, people should not throw things onto a field of play. They absolutely should not do that.
Yeah, and
there's been a bit of copycat on that.
Yeah.
Pitch invasions, generally, people should not do that either. Although, actually, again, if you look at England, if it's at the end of a game and people are just so joyous and so happy and they kind of go on and have a wee dance, frankly, I don't think that's a major problem. And it happens quite a lot in England, and it's not really seen as a problem, although I think that's starting to change there as well. If you run on to cause any harm, or you run on during a game and disrupt the game, then that's just really a complete pain. But that's something to be dealt with by the clubs and their stewards. Don't know that it's really a police issue if you're not coming on to cause harm or damage. I think it's a stewarding issue. And, clubs can work to sort of bring that down, give people opportunities to celebrate in the way that they want. Let's not take the joy out of the game. So I think there's been a bit of copycat sort of behaviour that's went on, but I do think there's been a massive overstatement.
Let me bring Dave McKinnon back in here. Okay, Dave?
Jenny, can I ask you, I think very quickly, if you take, for example, there has been an incident, I think the flare or the pyrotechnic last night. Peter Lawwell's come out very, very quickly. Neil Lennon's come out. The Green Brigade have come out, and all decent supporters have come out and said, this shouldn't be done. How can supporters stop it, or who's liable to stop this kind of thing? Because it is undermining the game, irrespective of how it's perceived. But how do you, as a fan, what do you think that we can stop this?
Okay. I mean, it's no question of saying, well, you legislate or you do anything like that. And by the way, it was a banger. It was a banger, right? A flare that went outside of the Horton last night. Nevertheless, it should not have happened. So I think that you could take the example, and I've mentioned England a few times here, and it's quite interesting because, England has had a much bigger problem with genuine football hooliganism. We don't have that in Scotland, and we haven't had it for a long time. But in actual fact, because of that, probably, they've developed ways of working so that there are a number of force areas in England where they have really good relationships between police and fans, between clubs and fans, between, so very good liaison, good discussions, good, addressing issues where they arise, and they have reduced, unwanted behaviour quite dramatically. So there are ways to do this, but it can't start from the demonisation of fans. So there are ways that, back in the day, when supporters' organisations really handled away tickets, then, fans policed themselves. The capacity for doing that has been removed by the fact that the clubs deal with the tickets. So clubs sell tickets to whoever they want to sell tickets to. It then doesn't become the fans' responsibility to be responsible for minding the people that clubs choose to sell tickets to. So that's not really an option. Although fan organisations can speak out, and as you've just pointed out, have spoken out and said, no, we don't want this. So we can use moral suasion. We can use, better liaison, better discussions, we can do all of that, and there's evidence that it works, and that's what we should do. And in particular, I would like to see, and we would like to see as an organisation, a proper, independent, parliamentary-led inquiry into the policing of football in Scotland, because we have to get to a point where there can be good, productive, trustful relationships between clubs, fans and the police. And we are so far away from that now that that sort of discussion is not possible at the minute. So that has to happen. But I think we can look to England for some good examples of good policing strategies.
But you know something, Jeanette? This is a point that Bill brings up sometimes, and I'm going to kind of repeat it. I mean, do we not spend a lot of time looking over the fence at the big neighbours, and we kind of, I'm talking about the whataboutery that goes on. That's another phrase that's used on this programme quite a lot. England is a big nation of 50 million people, and I mean they have come a long way since the days when they were banned from Europe in the late 80s and early 90s. Do we get a wee bit too hung up with what's happening over the border?
Well, I don't know if you do. I don't. I'm happy to take good practice and examples from anywhere, really. The reality is that we share a number of laws and so on with England and Wales, and so it's interesting just to see how they do things and things that work. But I mean, I'm very happy. So, for instance, we could look to Europe, and we could look to those countries where they have relationships with clubs, and fans have relationships where they set up areas where pyrotechnics are used safely. And people can choose to be in that area or not be in that area, so then fans can get their choice, and those fans that don't like it don't have to be near it, and those fans that do can be, and it is done much more safely. So there are good practice examples. We don't have to reinvent this. We can look around the world. Football is a global game. We can see what happens elsewhere, and we can try to use those things. But I think we have to learn also from our own experience, and our own experience tells us that criminalising us, abusing us, calling us names, deriding us, and trying to impose legislation on us that nobody else is subjected to does not work.
Just before David comes in here, I've got another tweet here. Guy asking here, when rugby players play a game, they're kind of punching and scraping lumps out of each other. But at the end of the game, it's all kind of handshakes and all the rest of it. I mean, I think what he's driving at here is maybe why can't football fans be more like rugby fans? But obviously, it's a completely different game, and it's a completely different fan base.
Are you talking about fans? Or are you talking about players there? Because you were talking about
he was talking about. What he was saying in the tweet was he was talking about
why can't it be more like rugby?
But I think that's maybe a slightly naive
singing obscene songs and behaving horrendously in public places. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe players are like that sometimes, but I don't know about the fans. I think rugby fans are certainly in Scotland are pretty well behaved. It's a different crowd. But anyway, let me bring in Dave, because Dave wants to bring a point.
Yeah, Jeanette, I was just really, I'm interested with your views on, getting some kind of independent group together that includes fans, the various, the clubs, the police, etc., etc. Is there any, sort of move bring this to the table, to actually set this up, or and if there isn't, who do you think should lead this? Should it be the SFA, the SPFL, the government? Who should lead this kind of initiative to get a real talking point together to come up with the solutions and make sure that we move on from and eliminate these problems?
Well, James Kelly, MSP, had put out calls for a proper independent inquiry into the police and the football. Now, that was then followed very quickly by a review of policing, which the police did into themselves. Now, that's not... We did not engage with that because it wasn't independent and we didn't think it was appropriate. And for that, we were accused of being apologists for criminality because we didn't want to take part in their review. And that's the kind of thing that means that the police certainly can't lead that because there is no trust. But a bit pointless us leading it because I don't know who would come to that. And so it needs to be, I think, parliamentary. It needs to be, maybe the Sport and Leisure Committee or something could actually conduct a review to which they would invite the clubs, the police, the fans, and have that discussion. I think, James Kelly's idea about an independent review is a good idea, and we support that.
Yeah, I know that the SFA and the SPFL would probably resist that, but there has to be some way through it because the ultimate, I agree that we want to make, going to a game, without any intimidation, going to a game to support and enjoy your team, going to a game to ensure that, some of your fellow fans don't do copycat things that bring the club and the game into disrepute. I agree all these things have to be done, but, I just, for me to do that, I think that somebody has to take the initiative. Now, I know that there's the Scottish supporters group, which have got 800,000 odd members. Is that a vehicle that you think would do it?
I genuinely don't think they have anything like that. I think you've probably multiplied by a factor of about 20 even what they claim, and I don't think what they claim is correct. That is not a functioning democratic organisation. They've got a website, and they asked people to sign up to the website, and then they claim them as members. I know people who signed up to that website who are now counted as their members. They don't have elections, they don't have meetings, they don't have anything. So, frankly, that's no vehicle for anything. Now, Supporters Direct is another organisation which I think has much more credibility in that regard, in that it genuinely is representing various supporters' trusts around the country. And they carry out a quite extensive fan survey. I don't always agree with everything Supporters Direct says, and I'm a member of the Celtic Trust, and we're not a party Supporters Direct. But they do genuinely try and consult with fans and find out what they think. So in that sense, they're a credible, legitimate organisation. But I come back to the fact that, there are kind of three sides to this. There's the football clubs, well, maybe more than three. There's the football clubs, there's the football authorities, there's the fans, and there's the police. So it seems to me that it has to be something outside of that, and the only thing that we can all say is genuinely legitimate, credible and representative is Parliament. And so a parliamentary committee, I think, would be the best idea to do that.
Well, Jeanette, we thank you for joining us tonight, and it's an interesting discussion, and it's one that's kind of going to roll on and on, probably into next season. Thanks very much for joining us tonight, and we hope we speak again. Thanks a lot, Jeanette.
Right, thanks.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers now. There's Jeanette. I beg your pardon. There's Jeanette there from the Fans Against Criminalisation. Just to fill in the history, they were founded in 2011. As the SNP were attempting to gain some political capital by forcing through a piece of emergency legislation which sought to curtail the rights of football fans following several high-profile incidents which have brought the issue of sectarianism back into the public spotlight. This is Rock Sport Radio. It's almost 7:25. Some breaking news tonight about Scotland's women's team as we get ready for the World Cup in France. Places in Scotland's party for the Women's World Cup finals are still up for grabs. Coach Shelley Kerr has told players not in her current squad Kerr's side play the first of 3 warm-up friendlies when they face Chile in Spain on Friday. Fiorentina forward Lana Cleland and Arsenal defender Emma Mitchell are among those missing after injury. We have a provisional list which we have to supply to FIFA, but it's not a closed door, Kerr has said over the last hour. Every single player has still got an opportunity to shine and make sure our decision is even harder if that's possible. Kerr is on record as saying that whittling down the 33 players she has used during qualifiers and friendlies to a squad of 23 for June's finals in France will be one of the toughest decisions she will have made as a coach. So that's breaking news tonight on the Scotland international women's team. Scotland versus Chile in the Pinatar Arena in Spain tomorrow. Kick-off 6 o'clock our time. And of course, I believe the Broken Biscuit Company are going to cover all 3 warm-up games, and then they're going to cover the send-off. But thankfully it won't be a bus around Hampden Park like it was for the men when they went to a certain World Cup.
No, absolutely not. But, I'm sure everybody will get behind it once they start appearing on the TV, then the scarves come out and the passion comes.
The ladies have got a real chance here to make a real name for themselves and be real heroes in Scotland.
No, absolutely, and I think that all credit to them. And I know Shelley very well, and she's hugely inspirational, and you wouldn't want a better leader than her going into taking your team into the World Cup. But another bit of news, Alex, that's came in. Rangers winger Ryan Kent has failed to overturn a 2-game suspension. And what do I know about football? Stephen Gerrard has accepted a 1-game touchline ban. I thought Stephen would have maybe challenged that, but he's accepted it.
It's only 1 game.
Yeah, the situation with Scott Brown, I think someone told me, one of the guys told me that that his that was wasn't going to be heard straight away, but I would imagine it was. I think it's more about the fact that that both clubs have been brought to book for it as well. Okay. But he's been handed a notice of complaint, and as such, there's no reporting of whether that would any result of that, because Celtic are they're defending the charges against Brown vigorously. So it's all continuing to kick off, and but as I say, I'm surprised that Stephen Gerrard, he must have just said...
It's maybe been a long week, Davy.
Well, maybe he's just said, look, I prefer to watch the game for the standing.
Just for this week. Just a reminder, that the Scottish Premiership games that are coming up on Saturday, Hearts versus Hibs, that's a lunchtime kick-off, 12:30 at Tynecastle. The rest are 3 o'clock kick-off, Celtic v Livingston, Dundee v Aberdeen, Hamilton Accies v St Mirren, Kilmarnock versus St Johnstone. The Scottish Premiership as it stands right now, Celtic 76, Rangers on 63, Kilmarnock third on 55, just ahead of Aberdeen, we're also on 55. Then it's Hearts, Hibs, St Johnstone, Motherwell, Livingston, Hamilton, St Mirren now 2 points clear of Dundee at the bottom, St Mirren on 20, Dundee on 18 points. And as you mentioned earlier on, Davy, the Scottish Championship really starting to hot up now. Dunfermline and even Morton are still on the cusp of the promotion playoffs. You've got Inverness in the top 4, Ayr, Dundee United, Ross County seem to be, well, not home and hose, but they're certainly 5 points clear. So you would fancy Ross County for automatic promotion, I think. You
would imagine so, and then it's obviously down to the lottery of who's going to then face the second bottom side in the... from the Premiership. And when you actually look at it, I've been looking at the run-in, if you like, for the bottom 3, because it's going to come from one of those. And Dundee, Livingston, Motherwell, St Johnstone, St Mirren, Hamilton, St Mirren, Hamilton on Saturday. That's a big one.
Yeah, that is a big
Livingston,
one.
Motherwell, St Johnstone, and then Hamilton opponents obviously St Mirren, Livingston, Motherwell, St Johnstone. So it's obviously going into these last games, and I think that those bottom 6 fixtures have added a significant amount to the league. And you and I last season were looking at the playoffs, the pyramids, the whole thing. I had said to you that I fancied Inverness to get there, and when it comes to the playoffs, they may just have the impetus, and it's almost like a shot at nothing. It's a free go for them if they get in. But the Championship is a very, very good league. You mentioned Morton there. Morton, whilst they can get into the playoffs,
they're right in the middle.
But they can also
relegation.
Yep. So it's a wonderful league, the Championship.
Yeah, it certainly is.
But once you're in it, it's very, very difficult. And if either Hamilton, St Mirren or Dundee go down, it's going to be difficult for them.
And we have to remind maybe non-Scottish viewers as well that in the Championship, it's 4th versus 3rd, and then the winner of that game takes on 2nd, and then the winner of that game takes on the relegation, the team in 2nd place in the relegation zone in the Premiership. I mean, just before we go to our next caller, I mean, we're looking at the Championship here. Gary Caldwell, I thought he was going to get a break in the Scottish Cup against Hearts. I knew Thistle would give Hearts a game, and they went very close at Tynecastle in the replay. But there's Gary Caldwell again with Partick Thistle, second bottom, facing possible relegation. He's not had a lot of luck with club teams, Gary Caldwell.
No, he hasn't, and as you say, he's got a wee bit of a record of. I think you explained to me the other day that he's been in this situation with Wigan. Was it in Chesterfield?
Well, Wigan and Chesterfield. I mean, I had a wee sabbatical in Chesterfield not so long ago, and I arrived in the Derbyshire town the day that Gary Caldwell was appointed as manager, and I saw about half a dozen, seven of their games. And I mean, he wasn't directly responsible for them going out of the league, but he was certainly, they certainly went down a few rungs in the ladder when he was there. And then when he left, the next guy that came in just couldn't save it, and they went out of the league. I just feel with Gary Caldwell sometimes, listen, a great player, don't get me wrong, I mean, a fantastic player, but I still feel sometimes that when I see Gary Caldwell, when I hear Gary Caldwell, and, I followed his career, down south with a wee bit of interest, the managerial career, especially at Chesterfield, I just thought that he's still got to find, I think he's still putting he's got to find a managerial mark. I'm not quite sure if he's got his managerial mark yet, if you know what I mean, David.
Yeah, I think so. I think, as you say, he was a great player. I think it's been difficult for him getting into Partick Thistle because, he followed such a great guy in Archie, who the board decided that he'd run his course, and they weren't getting into the promotion places that they so desired. It's backfired in a wee bit, and if you look at Thistle's form, over the last 4 games, they've lost 2, won 2, which, that was significant for them winning these 2.
He's been unlucky as well, David. He's been unlucky because he can't catch a break.
No, and I think one of the things that Thistle do is that, they play very good football. They've got some really good players. They just can't get the wins at the right time. And, it's all about bottle as you go into the last few games of the season. Whether they've got it, I don't know. I mean, for me personally, Thistle going out the league into
League One.
League One would be terrible for the club because it's such a great club, great supporters, but that doesn't guarantee your place in the league. It's about the league table doesn't lie, and when you look at Thistle, 30 games, they've only won 9 games out of that, and lost 16, and that's no great form.
There's still a chance that a fixture in League One next season could be Peterhead versus Partick Thistle.
All right, there we go.
So there's something for Thistle fans to think about.
I hope not.
Right. Okay, one of your old clubs as well, of course. Now let's go on to our next caller, and Juventus's Italian teenage forward Moise Kean suffered racist abuse from the stands during Tuesday's Serie A match at Cagliari. The 19-year-old held his arms aloft after scoring Juve's second in the 2-0 win, seemingly in response to chants, and was subjected to further abuse. Afterwards, he wrote on Instagram, "The best way to respond to racism." Boss Allegri and defender Leonardo Bonucci said Keane should take some of the blame for his celebration. Let's get Jordan Allison on from Show Racism, The Red Card. The Leonardo Bonucci and Moise incident, certainly not a storm in a teacup, but certainly not 50-50 either, Jordan.
No, first of all, thanks for inviting us on, guys. No, it was appalling, the comments to read after Tuesday night. We obviously are focused on the Scottish game, but when something as high profile as that comes up, it's always worrying. Bonucci's whether or not he's the captain there at Juventus, he's a leader figure, and that goes for the entire squad as well. The squad of players there are role models for, you can imagine, millions of people. So I think he's backtracked now with his comments. And that's.
He said he was too hasty. He was too quick. He didn't think about his words. That's what he's saying now.
Yeah, and I think that's on the back of people within the game responding to him negatively. I think Sterling was one of the guys that reacted to his comments. But I imagine he didn't, backtrack. Imagine he didn't feel he needed to backtrack. Imagine the atmosphere that would have created for the 19-year-old Moises Kean, and millions of other black and ethnic minority players that are trying to get into football. It's a horrible atmosphere to create.
Davey?
Jordan, it's David McKinnon here. I've been involved in clubs, and it's been a wonderful campaign. Show Racism the Red Card, and I think all the clubs have been behind it. But I think that, in my perception, is things have moved on, and I played in the 70s and 80s, in the 90s, and certainly it was, the game was full of it there. But I thought that the game had moved on a lot from this type of abuse, and it surprised me that these things continue to hit the front pages, for players to get abuse, because in this day and age, it's absolutely ridiculous. You obviously involved in Show Racism the Red Card. You must, tear your hair out at times when you think, all this hard work that you're doing, suddenly this comes from left field. Do you think that there is still an inherent racism within football?
Yeah, I mean, we do. You're absolutely right, Davey. We do tear our hair out when this happens. We're first and foremost an educational charity. There's a lot of misconceptions with Show Racism the Red Card. A lot of people think that we are this team of 100 strong, and we're awake all hours of the day to respond to incidents of football. We're not. Our bread and butter is going around schools and delivering anti-racism workshops. But because we've got that sort of football hybrid, we try to use football as a role model to champion anti-racism. So when things like this happen, it's really bad. I think, as well as that, you're right. It has improved since the 70s and 80s. We work with. We've got Derek Ferguson as an ex-pro, and he delivers anti-racism workshops with us, and he loves it. He's done it for, I think, over 10 years with us now. And he always tells us stories about how much it's improved, and it has. But with incidents like these creeping into football stadiums, it's almost a reflection of society, especially in what's going on in Italy at the moment.
Jordan, Paul Elliott, if we take one from Davies' era, Paul Elliott, the former Celtic player, former Chelsea player, he famously once said that the racism in Scotland was actually worse than what he experienced in London. Where are we with racism in Scottish football right now?
Well, I think over the last 3, 4, 5 months, we've had a rise in incidents. We've had the incident at Falkirk where a player was, I think he was abused by his own fans, wasn't he?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah.
And you've got the incident that was unfortunately on Sky Sports with Hibs, the Edinburgh Derby. Hibs and Leanne Dempster at Hibs reacted to that superbly. Within a really short period of time, Police Scotland had already identified the person.
But because of social media, Jordan, players are very quick to shut this down now. Players don't hold back anymore. They and we saw it with England and Montenegro as well. Players are very quick now to come out and shut it down, especially on social media, saying, "No, we're not having it. I'm not putting up with this."
Yeah, which is great, and it's the likes of Raheem Sterling down in England. He is quite active in social media, so when incidents like that happen, he's fully behind it, especially that with Montenegro. But with this incident at Juventus, I think it was brought into light because, as you rightfully say, Moises Kean put it on his Instagram and responded to it, albeit he celebrated in front of the fans as well, which I thought was magnificent. As a response to it, but his social media response to it was what helped it get media attention, throughout Europe, and I think that's any way that we can react in a positive way to change people's perceptions of racism.
Can I ask as well, Jordan?
Social media's that chap.
Can I ask as well, Jordan? I mean, where does your organisation stand on shutting grounds down? I mean, I'm just going to give a personal opinion here. I thought, England certainly won the game, and they won the moral high ground after what happened in Montenegro. But as I said at the time, closing games down, or closing stadiums down, sorry, that just means that the racists go and be racist somewhere else, and it's the real football fans that end up suffering. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely spot on. We support, as an organisation, we support any action that the government sees fit to stop, to end racism in the game, but and indeed society. But you're absolutely right. That reactive approach, it doesn't educate anybody.
And of course, that's what John Barnes went on about. He said they need to educate, not react, as you said.
Yeah, John Barnes said that he's a big supporter of Show Racism No Card in England, and similarly, Mark Haitley up here, he was attended our showcase event at Hampden in the end of February, and he spoke really highly about our work and how education is the only proactive way forward, because it is great. And as I said about Hibs, they reacted terrifically, as have all Scottish clubs that have been involved in incidents like these. But the reactive measures are great, but proactive measures need to be in place, and we need to work with the SFA and the Scottish Government to introduce more educational initiatives within the clubs and within schools, and work that up from a ground level to instigate a culture change which changes things rather than just reacting all the time.
Do you know, Jordan, we had Jeanette Finlay of Fans Against Criminalisation on, and she had, spoke about, the various things and the perception of incidents and, and how fans are treated in general. And, agreed that, that the clubs are coming out and trying to tackle this. She called for maybe an independent inquiry into the policing, as an example. Do you think it's time that, the game is probably not been any better, the stuff that we're seeing on the park, but, whether it's perceived or otherwise, we seem to have a lot of focus on incidents that are hitting the front pages on, discrimination, sectarianism, racism, homophobia, all these kind of things that we want to eliminate from society, not just football. But do you think there is a call for someone to stand up and lead some kind of, facility within the game, that everyone who has a vested interest in the benefit of the game and improving the game could get together and actually talk about this and actually come up with ways to eliminate this kind of nonsense?
Absolutely. Our idea with the showcase event that we hosted at Hampden at the end of February was to get all these decision makers from, like you say, Police Scotland, the Scottish Government and the Scottish football clubs together in one room to discuss recent incidents but also proactive measures going forward. We had the Sports Minister attend the event, Joe Fitzpatrick, and subsequently we've now got a meeting with him and Hamza Youssef to firstly pitch that we need to be visiting more football clubs directly. We need to be visiting schools, more schools directly, more so than what we're currently funded to do, so that we can instigate, as I say, an educational culture change from the ground up. But as well as that, a reporting mechanism as well. We feel that's there's a huge gap in Scottish football for that. When any incident takes place, that the fans know exactly where they can go if it takes place on the pitch, from grassroots all the way to the SPFL Premiership, so that the players know where they can go and where their reporting is going to take them. So there is a real gap for that in Scottish football. The Welsh FA work with Show Racism No Card in Wales, and they've implemented a tremendously successful reporting mechanism, which has seen a decrease in incidents and far more action taken towards incidents, and that action that they take goes on a national level to show that it's racist incidents in any discriminatory instance are taken very seriously at football, and that's something that's missing from our game at the moment.
Do you know we were just asked the same question to Jeanette and asking who should lead this, and whether it should be the government, whether it should be the SFA, the SPFL. But I know there's maybe a reluctance from the SFA and the SPFL to allow government to come in to lead in these issues, because they rightly or wrongly want to keep a lot of these things in house and deal with it themselves, because it opens up a huge amount of debate. Where are you in that? Who should lead this? Do you believe it should be the government?
Well, the government are, they've talked about stepping in and at times, and I know Hamza Yusuf came out, the Justice Secretary Hamza, he came out, I think it was a month ago, and discussed that they were looking into things like strict liability and other measures like that, so that they would step in and almost force the Football Association to do something. But getting everyone's heads together is absolutely the way forward. It's not something that happens very often. You don't often get the heads of the SFA, the SPFL and the Scottish Government in the one room together. So anything that hearing everybody's views and having real outcomes from a meeting like that is, I feel, is a way forward, because then you're all in the same direction, and we can actually finally get something done. Do
you know, I think you're right. You said something there that you don't very much hear in the same sentence as seminars and independent meetings as outcomes, because I feel that we sometimes have a talking shop simply because it's politically correct or whatever. And I'm not just talking about politicians or the government. I'm talking about across the whole areas of football, because it's the right thing to do, because we're seen there and we're supporting it. But those days seem to be frustratingly that it seems to be the norm, that there's no outcomes from it. I would really like to see something that there are outcomes that everyone buys into. I mean, and do you see the day when that's going to happen? Because what it needs is people to actually look inwardly and say, we do have these problems and we have to sort them, and we get in the power. I don't believe in the strict liability side, because I think that, that this is just a personal opinion. I think that, if the fans that are identified, they're doing this, they should be, basically, the sentences, and they should be identified and banned from grounds for life. They should, the sentence should be strict, because that's really the only way you're going to do it. You're going to ban fans from coming to see their team, and also the sentencing is going to be, harsh enough as a deterrent. But that seems not to be happening. But, if you're collectively getting everyone together, then you can actually agree all these things, these outcomes of a way of eradicating it. Do you see that as a happening, or is it just utopia?
I mean, you're absolutely right. I think the idea of the Scottish Government or one individual stepping in to make these drastic decisions is, again, it's reactive, and it's a one-way street type of approach, whereas getting everyone together, as we did at the end of February there with our showcase event at Hampden, getting everyone together is a much more productive way of hearing everyone's take on things. And us as an organisation, we work with schools every day. We're now working more with grassroots clubs, and we have data that supports the idea that racism is on the rise, not just in society, but as well as that in our game from grassroots level all the way up. And we obviously want to be, we should be involved in these discussions, and we do need more backing from the Scottish Government and the SFA to hold these meetings. I
know in England they had a drive not so long ago to try and encourage more black managers in the game. I mean, we've got at Albion Rose, we've got Kevin Harper, but black managers are kind of thin on the ground in Scotland. I mean, is that a thing that Show Racism, the Red Card, would do as well? Maybe a bit of positive discrimination?
Yeah, that was another topic that came up at our event. It touches on a wider issue, absolutely, that there's discrimination there. and I know Kevin spoke out about that in the past as well. But it does touch on a systemic issue of racism in society, and it's something we're absolutely keen on tackling. But it does require the support of the SFA and working in their inclusivity and their inclusivity policies, so that we can put our take on it, and also working with the educational institutions across Scotland as well to implement this.
Are there some people who still think that football should be a bastion of the white working class?
I think that's totally wrong. We work with football clubs every day, and that's something that.
No, I'm saying individuals, Jordan. I'm referring to individuals. Have you come across individuals who believe that football, for some reason, for some crazy reason, is the bastion of the white working class?
Yeah, I mean, you'll get that, and you do get small minorities in society, as you know, that have beliefs such as that, and it's really disappointing. But it always points to a lack of education on their part, because they're making prejudiced, they're having prejudiced views. Towards the sport, and it's something that we've tackled since the organisation started back in the 90s. So it's as you said before, it has improved from those darker days, but there are still problems, and we're tackling them.
I think I agree with you, Jordan. What I would say from the football club's perspective is that I'm sure there would not be one club within Scotland that would not want to eradicate all of these things from our game. So there's a desire, and there's an open door to actually solve it. It takes leadership, really takes leadership, for somebody to say, let's get this sorted, let's lead this forward. Is there anyone emerging to do that? You mentioned the SFA. Have they sort of stood up and said that they want to eradicate this and be part of it?
So they have an equalities policy, and that looks to boost inclusivity with race, with disabled disability as well, and obviously tackle LGBTQI issues as well within the game, using the game to promote that. They're absolutely open to discussion, but as you say, it does take leadership, and I think emerging from our showcase, we have a meeting with Joe Fitzpatrick and Hamza Youssef, and we're looking to generate real outcomes from that we can take back to the SFA and the SPFL.
Jordan, I just want to come in. I just want to come in because we've had a tweet, and you can answer this one. This is someone who's obviously saying he respects your organisation, but he says, I am sorry, but I must be living under a rock. Racism in Scotland is minuscule. I think that people must be reading and looking at certain media outlets to even think it is as proportionate as some people say. But I guess your point would be, even if it is in this guy's mind minuscule, that's just still too much. Yeah,
if you take Sky Sports' recent survey, I think they did research over the last year. 86% of people that attend football matches have witnessed racism, a racist instance in the stands. A further 20% often say that they often witness racism. Yeah. That's huge. Racism remains the highest reported hate crime in Scotland.
Yeah. I think if I can just come in as well, Jordan. I mean, replying to this tweet, and obviously, the gentleman's entitled to his opinion, but again, is it this kind of Scottish thing? Oh, pause like us, we're not like that. We're not like them down south. I mean, is that a kind of card that we use sometimes to deflect?
It would be great. Honestly, it would be great that if I could agree with that, and it would show that anti-racism education is working. But what needs to be done is that it's a collective effort to eradicate it. And if Scotland, if we want to be this nation that champions anti-racism, then we need more support to do that. it is still an issue, unfortunately. I wish I was here saying otherwise, but it is. But as I say, we need to all work together in order to eradicate it.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't matter if it's 5%, 10%, but whatever the percentage is. I mean, the aim is always, zero tolerance in the end. Jordan, thanks very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you joining us, and we'll wish you all the best with your work with Show Racism, the Red Card. How long have you been going now? Just briefly, was it 04, 05 you started?
Yeah. The organisation itself was, I think, 1996. Don't quote me on that, but no, it's coming up to about 15 years we've been in Scotland.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've got a fantastic relationship with the football clubs and the work that we do, and we can only urge for more support to keep it going. Okay,
Jordan, more power to you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot. Jordan Allison from Show Racism, the Red Card. And, that tweet was interesting. It's from the Corrupt Referee. That's just his Twitter handle. But, it's that kind of like, that sort of thing doesn't happen up here. You better believe it does. Anyway, let's move on with about 5 minutes left on the programme. Just a wee reminder that Andy Olsen and Adam Todd will be here from 8 o'clock with Formula 1 news, pole position. Ian Martin in the chair from 9 o'clock tonight with Rock, Stock and Barrel. Got a few minutes left. Davey, anything else you want to bring up on the show tonight?
No, I think the thing is that, these topics that we have, that, they're not warm and cuddly.
No, that's for sure.
And that's,
not tonight anyway.
Well, and it may be difficult for people to listen, but, at the end of the day, we love the game. We
protect it.
We're passionate about it. And, as I said there, this season has been a great season. Really, really some great football. There's some incidents, there's various things, and it's actually, it's pulling the game down a wee bit. Now, whether, as Jeanette thinks that, the media are sensationalism, I don't know that for a fact. She may be correct and she may not be, but I don't know whether that's the fact, and I respect what she said about it. But it's inevitable that if things happen in games that that are really something that we ought to eradicate, you have to mention it, because the clubs are desperate to eradicate this kind of nonsense. Because if you look, Peter Lawwell, Neil Lennon, the Celtic, the Green Brigade coming out, they quite clearly, think what happened at the game last night. And I'm not taking that in isolation, but that type of incident, they've come out very, very quickly and said we don't want any part of it. Yep. So, we need to sort it out. I think that, I think proper CCTVs, systems, they can identify anyone that does it. And I really mean it, Alex, that see if someone does this, there's no second chances, and they have to, they have to put legislation in that people are in the courts the next day and are charged, and there's an adequate sentence that is a deterrent. The clubs will ban these individuals for life, and ultimately any decent fan, or any fan that thinks they're following a trend and they want to do this simply because someone else is doing it, they'll very, very quickly realise that their liberty and their opportunity to attend the game they love and support the team they love will disappear. And I think that some of the people that do this, particularly the younger people, that it's almost like they see someone doing it and they want to do it because it's sensationalism.
It's almost like a social media trend. I mean, I've kind of watched it carefully, and we've said often that social media and the world of social media brings people closer to the action than ever before. You have access to celebs, football players, sports people, pop stars, rock stars. You have a closer connection to them now than you ever did through social media. But it's a bit, for me, it's like when trends happen, like pitch invasions and what happened at Birmingham and what happened at Hibs. It's a bit like, for me, it's a bit like, an audience member jumping onto the stage and wanting to be involved in the play. No, you don't get to be in the play. You get to, you're the audience, and you support and you don't become the main event, and that's kind of what's happened recently.
Yeah.
A lot of the side issues have become the main event.
Well, I agree with you, Alex, but there's and again, not to take it in isolation, but Hibs came out very, very quickly when the fan came on and confronted James Tavernier. What I don't see after it, and whether it's been reported or whatever, but I don't see almost like a rogues gallery of what happened. I don't know if any media outlet has actually said, right, well, this incident happened.
Yeah.
Who did it?
Yeah.
If they legally they can do
They
it.
want to talk about the incident for days, but they don't want to say this is the guy that did it.
Who did it?
Yeah.
This is what happened to him. He got such and such a sentence and he's banned from every club.
Yeah.
Now, if that happened, more and more people, or maybe sardonically, they will think, well, I went in the rogues gallery, because that's what happens. People want to copy it, but that's a different thing. But it's flavour of the month. You hear a lot about it. It's condemnation, but we don't have to see a follow up to see what actually happened to the people that did it, because. I'm not just talking about true fans, but every fan except a small minority, and that's what Jeanette was rallying behind. A small minority let the game down.
Okay.
So it's about identifying them, sorting it out, and basically we don't want these kind of people watching our game.
Yeah, and so see all of us. Dave McKinnon, thanks very much for your contribution tonight on Thursday's Talking Football. We've got a minute left, and coming up very shortly is Andy Alston and Adam Todd on pole position. Premier Formula 1 news for you between 8 and 9. Ian Martin, Rockstock and Barrel and all the rest of it on from 9 o'clock tonight, and then the Rock's on 1 till 6 in the morning. Bill Young will return, and it's the hat trick tomorrow. It's Bill Young, it's Hugh Burns, it's Paul Hegarty on the phone previewing the weekend matches, and more chat, of course, on Talking Football. You can watch it as well as listen to it on Facebook, Periscope and Twitter, and it's also on the YouTube channel. Dave McKinnon, thanks very much for your help tonight. I'll be back on Drive Time tomorrow here on Rock Sport Radio, and Bill will return on Talking Football. Don't forget Sports Saturday as well. We've got SPFL matches to be covered on Saturday by our intrepid reporters, so make sure you join me 2 until 6 here on Rock Sport Radio.
Love music, live sport. Talking Football with David McKinnon and Alec Horsburgh. In for Bill Young on Rock Sport Radio.